Hey, everybody, welcome to the first inaugural episode of Video Games Are for Losers. I'm Rusty.
And this is Cliffcoat.
All right, so today, guys, we got a great episode for y'all. Very first episode, me and Cliff Goat here. So we're gonna touch on a few topics as far as what's going on in the world of technology, video games, social media, crypto bros, that kind of stuff. And then we're gonna touch on our origin stories and how we got started in video games and talk about some early memories. So I'm gonna pass it off to Cliff for the first topic. So for our first topic today, Cliff uses this soundbite in all of his streaming stuff. It's one of his crowd favorites. Started off as a video clip in the worst quality ever. Leroy Jenkins from the infamous WoW clip is 17 years old. So go ahead and tell us how you feel about that, Cliff.
Whenever I first heard about this video, the Leroy Jenkins video from 2005, I had barely known about World of Warcraft. I know some friends from high school that we know were playing it day in, day out. But whenever I saw this video uploaded in its glorious 480p resolution to YouTube, I thought to myself, man, I wish in 2022 I could upload 480p, 360p video and have it watched hundreds of millions of times
Yeah.
worldwide over time. And I thought to myself, my goodness, how hard is it to stick out these days? But back in 2005, whenever the Leroy Jenkins clip dropped, it was the hottest mixtape you ever heard when it comes
Oh,
to.
it was fire. It was banging. I personally, like you, never played WoW, but I was in a WoW atmosphere pretty heavy with I'll leave everybody nameless, but we know everybody that played WoW that we were friends with, and specifically one person I know that probably pissed in a 2 liter jug and set it underneath the desk kind of thing. He played it that heavily. But so being in that sphere, I never got to relate or be a part of that because I didn't play it. Like I didn't have the PC to run it. I didn't really have an interest in the game whatsoever anyway. But when that video came out, like it's the first time that I actually wanted to play and be a part of WoW was because of that video and how much fun it looked like everybody was not having caused by the one guy to run in the middle of a raid, which I do
Exactly.
understand what a raid is, but
Yeah, whenever I was me playing video games up to that point in life, I mean, it was just I mean, it's been mainly a single player experience. The only time I would ever play multiplayer is just locally if I'm trying to play like Smash Bros. Melee or some other game like that. And up until when I became a content creator, I thought to myself, well, it's not all about being esports level when it comes to certain competitive levels of games. I want to have some trolling as well. I want to be able to replicate the experience that I and the rest of the world was exposed to in 2005 and try to replicate that in my own vision to my own followers in my community. So I thought to myself, dang, so there's other avenues that I can take here in terms of enjoying a game. I could be that one guy that fucks shit up. I would love to be that
yeah,
guy that fucks shit up in a video
yeah,
game.
he
And I thought
did.
to myself, if these people can garner that type of reaction, that type of memory that sticks in all of our minds for the rest of our lives, I mean, I'm all for that. Here's the one thing that's the biggest crime in all of this, in my opinion. Do we know any of the names of the people involved in the video off the top of our heads? Even the
Not
streamer name.
one bit. The only person I know is the guy whose name was Leroy Jenkins. That's the only
that
human being in
yeah.
that whole that I, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. When it comes to landmark events like this in the world of entertainment, the names of those people sometimes doesn't make it out. Or if those names probably are out there. I see Ben Schultz. It looks like the person who made and played the Leroy Jenkins character in WoW, and confirmed it was a staged event. It was not an organic event per standard.co.uk. But that just goes to show that I would love to know all the people involved, but at least Ben
Yeah,
Schultz,
I'd like to
that's
know
the
about it. Yeah.
person who is the brains behind the event. I had to look it up on Google just now, but Ben,
I'm
if you're
sure
listening
there's
out
a,
there, you're awesome, fam.
what's his name? Ben Schultz.
Ben SCHULZ.
But yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know it was that. I thought it was organic, but it's still a great video either way. Uh, yeah. So the next, I guess that we'll move forward. So we're gonna have to do a couple of tributes here. We'll go ahead and do a tribute and send off to 81-year-old Robert Krakoff. He's responsible for a lot of you guys out there and y'all's ability to crack off. He is the founder, co-founder, not the single founder, but he was the co-founder of Razer. All of the Razer, mice, which was the first peripheral was the Razer the mouse. I can't remember the name of it, but that was their first peripheral. So we just wanted to give him a proper rip send off, R.I.P. to him. And Cliff's got a Razer mouse there, so I can't throw up anything Razer right now. My Razer mouse actually broke, so I have a Corsair.
There's more. That's a Razer mouse pad too.
Oh,
Look
and
at
a
that.
Razer mouse pad.
Man, I'm
There you
loaded,
go.
fam. Let me say
DPI
this.
out the ass.
Let me say this about Razer. I bought my, I created my, I put together my first custom built gaming PC in 2011 when I was in university, using some of my unsubsidized standard loans. Thanks a lot, Biden. Anyway,
There you go.
I used a lot of that money to buy my first gaming PC because I said, you know what? I think the experience away from console will be so much better, and obviously, in my eyes, is. But the first mouse I ever bought was a Razer Death Adder mouse. It was just a typical 5-button mouse, which I thought, okay, I'm gonna be playing FPS games a lot, so 5 buttons just makes sense. 2 buttons on the side, one for reload, one for melee, and then middle mouse, other standard buttons.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, the mouse is probably the most important accessory that I ever purchased for the gaming PC because it's got to feel great in my hand. Ergonomic for you and for myself is going to be different. It's going to be different from said lady who works in the office or said guy who works in the office.
Yeah,
It's
no
gonna be
two
different
hands
for
are built the same.
Just like for me, I like to wear Nikes because it contours to my feet perfectly compared to other major brands out there. Razer, as far as the mice go, I'm a lifer when it comes to Razer mice. And seeing the empire that Razer has developed into, because they're competing, they're competing hand over fist, if you will, if that's the right phraseology, with like people like Elgato, like Logitech,
Yeah.
and with the laptop game they got going. I saw their laptops the other day at the Razer store here at the Domain in Austin, and let me tell you,
Isn't that the one that they just built? Isn't that a
yep,
brand new
that's the
facility?
one they just built.
Okay.
That's the one I was in the other day, and let me tell you, they've got a footprint that I feel like can evolve to something a lot more than what it is now. And I think that whatever vision Razer guy had or he had communicated to his team whenever he was alive, I think that vision is going to grow into something quite extraordinary with the Razer brand. It's going to be a bigger, even a much bigger name in the years to come. What you think about that, Rusty?
Well, as far as like the peripheral game, for sure, because I noticed over the last few years, they've really stepped up the amount of things that they're creating as far as like range of products. You know, a lot of companies start out and you're only going to get, one or two different kinds of mice that you could buy from them. Even Razer, when they first started out, they only had the one mouse. And now they have the range. You have your base model $20 mouse, and then you could even go to the extreme and get the like crazy, I mean, mouse with 30, 40 buttons on it. There was one that had it looked like a keypad. It had 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. I mean, the mice, like the peripheral game has changed too, just not just Razer, but just to be competitive in that market. They have to keep coming up with new stuff and new technologies and faster click rates and better DPI settings and stuff like that. So I feel like as far as a peripheral company, they're doing what they're supposed to be. They had the mask and everything that they made, which I thought was pretty cool too. They did the Razer masks during COVID.
Whenever you look at peripherals, whenever you look at gaming laptops, whenever you look at anything in Razer's line of products, and you compare it to a competitor like Dell, if you look at Dell's peripherals, they feel like business products. When you
Yeah,
look at
they
something
do.
like Logitech, those feel like business products.
They do. Yeah.
Logitech tries to pose as a gamer centric company, but they're not. Razer, when you look at them, they feel everything about their product line
Yeah.
feels gamer and built for gamers, built for
Well,
gamers.
in doing my research and stuff, I can't remember names or places or things of anybody, but they had signed the first ever East that like the first major like life changing esports contract comes from Razer. I'm pretty sure they signed some guy whenever they first made that the first mouse. I can't remember his name or any. I should know more about him, but I didn't look it up prior. But they gave him some ungodly amount of money to you know do esports underneath their brand. So they know their market, they know what they wanted to do. They had a goal and a vision. And rest in peace to Robert Krakoff. I hope that whatever vision him and his other co-founder had, and I hope that they continue to uh, push whatever it is they want to push as far as the gaming peripherals. Like you said, Logitech, Dell, it all feels office like, and a lot of their products, when you go on their deal, or they have office in the title of some of their products. A lot of their products, Office Mouse 5000 or whatever the hell you want to call it. And I think that's what's always been great about Razer is that uh, they knew who they wanted to sell their products to. They didn't want to sell their products to Joe Schmo working the 9 to 5 doing data entry. They wanted to target video games. And if you go out there and you talk to anybody that's been influenced or affected by PC gaming or has touched a PC or anything like that, Razer's a common brand, a very, very commonly known uh, brand. A lot of headphones. I see people with a lot of Razer headphones, a lot of Razer mice, a lot of Razer keyboards. So yeah, shout out to them. If y'all want to sponsor us, hit me up in the DMs, real low and slow. So we'll push on. We were gonna shout
Let me
out
grab a drink
another.
real quick. Let me grab
Yeah,
a
yeah,
drink
yeah,
real
yeah.
quick.
Go ahead.
All right, go.
All right. So we were gonna do another shout out for another guy who had passed away. I'm still gonna shout him out. I really don't know a lot about him. I do know a lot about what he was a part of. So the guy's name is David Walden. So rest in peace to him. He was a 79-year-old man, and he was there at the dawn of the internet when the internet at that time, the only application that was seen for the internet in the early internet, I'm talking late 60s, early 70s, the only function that was really seen for this, a RapidNet is what it was called, ARPANET, however you say it. I don't know how to pronounce it, but
ARPANET.
yeah, ARPANET. So it was mainly used for defense and for colleges and stuff to be able to pass information and things like that. That was what the intended was, to share information between government and then for academia as well. And he was a part of that. I don't know what he was a part of effectively, but I just wanted to make sure that we added that in there, since without their early efforts, a lot of the world as we know it today, I mean, eventually I'm sure somebody would have gotten to the point of instantaneous communication like we're able to, like we've achieved. But I feel like you still got to give those people their due, regardless of what would have happened, whether they did it or didn't do it. They did it, so I feel like we got to kind of give a hats off to some of these early internet uh, creators, like created networks that weren't even like, I couldn't imagine a world that's not so interconnected. Like I can't fathom a world that's not even as interconnected as it is. Because even though we are children of the '90s, uh, like you can't miss it. Like our whole lives have been like technology, So
Just to paint the picture for those of you listening about ARPANET, it's important that we paint the picture for them to understand what ARPANET spanned, geographically speaking, in terms of the time frame. ARPANET was up from about 1969 to 1989, mainly used for academic and
oh
research
wow, so
purposes.
you're,
It was
hold on,
it
I don't
was
want to interrupt you, but so you're telling me that they use this from the late '60s, and they still use it like right before we were being born? Like
yes,
the
sir.
years that we were, wow, I didn't know that. See, that's something I didn't
And
even know.
and and for those of you that don't that that do not see the video here, in case any edits are made, the network spans from the East Coast to the West Coast. There's several different educational institutions involved, and I believe some military bases. Not totally sure. It looks like at least some universities and like Xerox and some other locations throughout the country, no spots in Texas. But basically, this is the first iteration of a public internet, essentially. The first version of how public packet switching can be done um, over telephone lines, not just within a network, but over analog lines, over distances, not just within a room per se. So
Yeah.
this is the first implementation of an actual working internet, just not open to the public at large, if you will, just only um, um, within educational institutions. But this was the first iteration of an internet. So, and for those of you who don't see the video of this, look up an image of the ARPANET and look up all the locations of where ARPANET stretched to, and you can see these were the only facilities in the country, in the United States, in which a
And it's
public internet
mostly
was up.
and it's mostly just to let everybody know, it's mostly bi-coastal. You had, I'm sure, the hubs that you had that were in the Midwest and stuff like that. I'm sure that was all just for connecting the East to the West. It was probably hubs of, points of connection rather than points of dissemination of information, I would imagine, from what I've seen of that, of this ARPANET map. uh but yeah, so shout out to David Walden and ARPANET. If without it, we don't have internet, and without internet, we would all lead pretty boring lives. So
And one more,
yeah,
one
yeah,
last
yeah,
time,
yeah. Go ahead.
ARPANET,
ARPANET,
ARPANET.
ARPANET. Okay,
Yes.
ARPANET. Okay. So we'll go ahead and segue into the next part here. So we all pay for streaming services. Some of us pay for 10 of them. Some of us pay for one of them. Like I personally, I do a share where I pay for half of the streaming services, and the other half of the streaming services are paid for by my sister, and we swap, information as everybody does. And Netflix doesn't really like that, so I feel like Netflix is discussing rolling out ads, and they've trialed it in some places as well. So I feel like what they're doing now is trying to combat us sharers of accounts. And we're already paying, I think it's like $24 for the premium package where you get all HD for like over 4 or 5 different users and stuff like that. And you know Netflix is one of those ones for me that I could really probably cut it and be okay and be fine with it. There's not very many things. I only watch some of the comedy stuff that they do, and the David Letterman stuff I kind of like to check out. And every now and again they'll have a really good documentary or something. But as far as like original content, it feels like their original content is strained a little bit right now. Like they're not putting out a lot of stuff that's really like interesting to me. So for them to roll out ads is just like, I mean, if they're gonna do ads, I feel like if you're paying the 24 for the premium version, there should be a premium ad free version. Like Hulu has a version that you could get where you watch ads, and it's a cheaper version of it, and that's great. That's awesome. Because as somebody who hates advertisements, I don't mind paying the extra $5 a month to never watch an ad all month. Like that's cool. That's okay. I'm okay with that. So from what I understand about Netflix, though, is there's no intention of an implemented tier system. So, how do you feel about that? I mean, I think it without a tiered system, it's not fair to the guy paying $25 a month, and then the guy paying $5 a month, and I have to watch the same amount of ads as him, and I'm paying triple at that point than what he's paying.
There is a specific aspect of this that should not go overlooked when we are talking about Netflix and streaming services in general. And this is the biggest elephant in the room. If you are a company that manages a streaming service, it's called password sharing. Let that sink in for a little bit. How many people do you know, rhetorically speaking, either share a streaming service account or receive such account information illegitimately? And I'm not talking about through a shared service like YouTube TV that you hooked me up with a couple of years ago. For the listeners out there, I'm talking about, have you been guilty, not in a legal sense, but have you been guilty of either sharing an account or receiving an account? And no one has to answer that because I feel like that's That's akin to admitting that you do drugs or you smoke weed in
Yeah,
a state in which it is illegal. Well, it is federally illegal still, but you get the point I'm
yeah,
trying to make here. You get the point.
absolutely.
Think about the password sharing from a company perspective. I mean, if you look at, um, I don't have any stats at the top of my head as I'm trying to look this up, but you just think about how many people have probably shared or have received someone else's account information. You
Probably
can
a
probably
lot.
guess
It's
hundreds
probably
of
a lot of
millions,
people.
right? And if we're
Easy.
putting, and if you're putting, and if Netflix is not able to put the two-factor authentication onto their accounts, which that would hurt even worse, although it would be more secure, that would not help their pocketbooks, right? What would happen is, what's going to have to happen is if Netflix and other companies are losing money from shared accounts, well, they're going to try to recoup that by trying to force those people that are illegitimately using the accounts, again, illegitimately in the scope of the company. They're
Well,
going to
company
force those.
policy too. I
Right.
imagine if they could prove that people were, I don't know how well password sharing, like how provable it is from a technological standpoint, but I imagine if they could prove it, they would probably start hitting people with TOS, terms of service, like, because I'm pretty sure it's a violation of your terms of service with Netflix to share your password. I'm pretty sure that's probably in the language, even though people still do it, and I don't think there's any real way to stop that. Unless you IP lock accounts. Like you could only, and then like there would be so many problems with that because if you're somebody who's technologically savvy who refreshes your IP or you change your IP every so often or whatever, like I feel like you'd start hitting some kind of you'd have to call the company every so often. Hey, well I changed my IP. This is my new IP. Like it would create so many other problems that password sharing is a lesser of problems that they would have, if they were to attack people, I guess, for sharing passwords.
So, as terms of what I was going to say a little bit ago to kind of cap off what I was going to say, um, there is no fix for Netflix's woes with the password sharing except to toss those ads on because if the illegitimate people are going to be on those accounts, Netflix has got to try to recoup by making those illegitimate users watch those ads.
Yeah.
It's kind of a not the
Catch
perfect
22.
solution, but it's the best
Yeah.
possible solution because you're not going to have any spyware on Netflix because that won't ever fly, and people are all about the privacy. We all are. So that goes without saying. So what's going to happen is Netflix is going to have to use ads to try to use it as a how effective of a band-aid in the long run. We shall see. They're all about the profits,
I
but
feel like that.
people are all about the sharing too, and
Yeah.
those things are difficult to exist, especially in a world in which Netflix is trying to still up in the ante. Netflix could be the next blockbuster in the next 10 or 20 years. No cap. They could be.
If they're
You
not
never know.
already,
There you go.
they killed Blockbuster effectively. I remember in the early 2000s, my friend's grandma no longer rented at the stores. She started doing the Netflix thing, and she would just ask us, if we were going out there for the weekend or whatever. She would just say, "Hey, well, what movies do y'all want to watch this weekend when y'all come out?" So like, she would call us on like a Monday, and we would be like, "Oh, I want to watch this movie. Oh, well, I want this movie." So when we went out there that weekend, she would have both of the DVDs ready to go. This early 2000s at the beginning of DVDs. So, you'd get the DVDs and boom. I mean, it was as simple as that. And we wouldn't have to drive to Blockbuster to pick it up anymore. Whatever surviving movie house was in the area, rental house was. At that time, I think Blockbuster was still going pretty strong, but there was the Flicks and there was like Hollywood Video was a real big one still. Hollywood Video is one that we used to use a lot. But so let's keep pushing here. So you use YouTube a lot for streaming, and all of this will eventually be on YouTube, and that's where we'll actually be streaming from. Our episodes will be eventually live, so editing won't even matter eventually. So YouTube gifted subs. So YouTube has a lot of challenges coming up, and Twitch has a lot of challenges coming up as well. The challenge for YouTube is how how many ideas can they steal from Twitch to become relevant in the streaming world? Because it's real hard to replicate Twitch, and it's real hard to take that feel that the entire site has like the community has for Twitch. Like it's created its own ecosystem, if you will, and it's not been able to be replicated yet by anybody. So how do you feel like the gifted subs is that a step closer, or are they still so far away? Even adding gifted subs is still too far detached from. Do you feel like uh, what changes do you feel like they need to make, or how do you feel about the gifted subs? I'm sure you like that idea. I mean, I'm sure that's a great idea. And then I heard they were trying to develop a raid system too. I can't remember what the name they had for it was, but it was like a similar to hosting, like Twitch has. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on YouTube gifted subs and all that?
My big picture perspective is that YouTube could close the gap all the way with Twitch as quickly as they want if they really wanted to. Let me paint the picture for you.
Yeah, go
Twitch
for it.
first introduced subscriptions in 2011. Let that
Yep.
sink in. Twitch gifted viewer or gifted presented the ability to gift subscribers in November 2017, and Twitch also implemented the ability to gift subscriptions to random community members in 2018. Um, if I was a company that wanted to actively compete, especially with a feature that is as big money generating as gifting subscriptions, I would have jumped on this a long time ago if I was YouTube, if I was Google. And I don't know if I mean think about this, Rusty. If you were the owner of YouTube and Google, or either one, and you saw that Twitch already has been doing the gifting of subscriptions for 4.5 years,
Yeah.
and we're 4.5 years behind, we being YouTube, how would you feel about being 4.5 years behind, catching up with the
Well,
times?
Well, I feel like in streaming, YouTube is more than 4 years behind. I feel like they're back, they're 15 years behind. They're like Justin TV, you know what I mean? They're that far behind in the in terms of streaming. And a lot of it has to do with piss poor discoverability for live. And that's not just gaming live, that's anything that they have on there that's live. If it's not some like hosted event or something huge like a Johnny Depp trial or something like that. Like a lot of that stuff does not make it to your home page, like your youtube.com page, like your curated list. And unless I follow somebody who live streams often, like you're like Cliff Goat at youtube.com, like your stuff pops up in my feed, and then like Tim the Tap Man and Dr. Disrespect, but there's no discoverability as far as anybody that wants to grow as a content creator, uh, like Twitch has. Twitch has and it's XQC that put it this way. They have the directories. So for every game, every type of streaming or whatever, it has the directory. And on that directory, you could see everybody who is streaming. And he says it takes the fight out of you because it feels like on YouTube you're on an island and you're just on this island by yourself and there's nobody around you, whereas Twitch, you're all on an island together and you're fighting to get to the top of the mountain on this island. Like so you could actively know who you're competing against and knowing what you can do to improve or whatever it may be to beat that next person. So he says it takes away a lot of the hunger and a lot of the drive out of like early content creators and people that are just getting into it, and it's discouraging when you can't you know that the discoverability is bare minimum, if any at all, to your stream. And that's one of the things that I personally, whenever I went from Mixer to Twitch, whenever I started streaming or whatever, I did notice that there was way more interaction on Twitch. There was way more like people seeing you on Twitch than they were on Mixer. Like it just seems like a lot of these companies that want to compete, they've got great, I feel like Mixer had a great foundational approach to streaming, but there's always something that's amiss that Twitch just does in such a better way. I feel like the gifted subs is a good thing for YouTube though. I feel like that's something they need to implement, especially if they want to start taking content creators away from Twitch, because at some point throwing the bag at them is not gonna. You're not gonna steal everybody from Twitch with a bag. XQC, he doesn't need the money to go to YouTube. Like none of those guys that have switched that I could name, like Sakuno, uh, Ludwig, Tim the Tap Man, none of them need the money to go to Twitch. They don't need the money. They go for the bag. They go for the immediate upfront money that they get when they sign those contracts for exclusivity. And Twitch now has canceled all exclude. There is no Twitch exclusivity anymore. They've ended the exclusivity contract, so they don't do exclusivity deals anymore. So it's like you're it feels like Twitch is at a point now where everybody's about to all these companies are coming up to Twitch while Twitch is slowly going backwards in a sense, taking away friends lists, whatever, just they're just doing things that the community isn't extremely happy with, but they don't care because they're attached now to the largest company in the world ish, if large, let's say the largest distributor of home goods has to be Amazon at this point. The largest single delivery distribution of goods, they're attached to this company. You know what I mean? So why do we have to listen to our content creators when at the end of the day, if this guy that has 100,000 views or whatever, if he doesn't work out for us, there will be somebody that's entertaining enough to fill that spot that we could throw money at. You know what I mean? So I just don't think it's in their best interest, Twitch, to keep doing what they're doing. And I feel like YouTube is definitely progressing in the right direction with what they're doing. And they have the potential, if they get everything together and they're able to create like this community feel to it, YouTube would take over easy. It's the largest the video site on earth. I mean, people consume more YouTube videos than probably any other media platform. I think is almost safe to say.
YouTube is definitely catching up, and I always like to think about the method behind the madness. Is it a situation in which YouTube decided we want to keep this ace in our sleeve for the appropriate time, or did they already have the idea, or did they literally just now decide, okay, let's go ahead, or do they really were that slow behind the curve? I always like to think either you're slow behind the curve to implement this feature, or you already had the idea for a while, but you were just sitting on it for whatever strategic reason. Who knows what that could be? But
Yeah.
I always like to know the intent behind it, because I always like to think about it on in terms of, okay, we're already catching up. Let's say theoretically, YouTube is already neck and neck financials with Twitch. Let's just say theoretically, but we haven't even implemented the game changer for us, which is the gifted subs. Because there's always that one or two people out there that might go ape shit and say, "I'm gonna drop 1,000 on gifted subs." There's this one YouTuber out there who does pro wrestling podcasts. He every other week or so, he'll have someone drop in like $500 super chats, and sometimes multiple $500 super chats at once, which blows my mind. And if you get one of these content creators that has enough money that I'm gonna go ahead and gift all these subscriptions because he or she is not gonna create 500 different accounts. The next best thing is just a gift to 500 different accounts. So that is that's a snowball effect of sorts in terms of just creating a feature that just exponentially takes you to the next level, because those high spenders that are out there, they're gonna pump that money through YouTube's financial system that much more quicker, and it's a 30% cut on YouTube. Think about that.
Yep.
So every
Yeah,
super chat and gifted sub.
which the cut is a lot better now on YouTube than what Twitch has. So the cut on Twitch, they're trying to take more of the money now. They're starting to change. They're starting to think about a 70-30, or instead of you getting half of your stuff, they're starting to change some saying they're driving people away. They're driving content creators to other platforms, it seems like. But yeah, so that's that. next I wanted to kind of touch just for a little bit on the Pokemon Home update. And so Nintendo has now shifted to it's a generational shift that happens with video games, but now they have completely shifted and they are no longer supporting Pokemon Home. From what I read for 3DS, it's done. 3DS, that will be the nail in the 3DS coffin, ending all of the uh, support for Pokemon. I feel like that was one of the things that kind of keeps the 3DS networks and stuff going for Nintendo, like their servers and stuff for 3DS is specifically Pokemon is probably the number one reason why they exist. So the fact that they're now shifting their Pokemon Home, which for those of you who don't know Pokemon Home is like a banking system for your Pokemon. So say you catch for instance, while I had a 3DS, I had caught a Pokemon on Diamond, and I wanted to transfer it to Black and White or X and Y or whatever. Pokemon Home allowed you to take your Pokemon from Diamond, you send it to Pokemon Home, it goes from Pokemon Home, and then you could then transfer it to another game. So they're tightening up this atmosphere, and instead of it being 3DS and all this, they've now Switch and Pokemon Go and Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, the two worst Pokemon games of the new generations. That's another conversation for a different day, but I really don't like those two games at all. But it allows you to trade these Pokemon around all these things. Of course, there's stipulations, so you can't have Pokemon that's exclusive to like regionally exclusive, I guess, like the Hylucian, I guess is what it's called, or Hysalui. I don't know how to pronounce all these weird names and stuff, but you're not able to take like a Hylucian, whatever it is, and then whenever you transfer it, it becomes that generic version of whatever that Pokemon is. So if it's this Hylucian Typhlosion and you transfer it to a different game, it's just a regular Typhlosion. It takes away uh, whatever the regional coolness of it is. So that's pretty cool, though. That's just technology moving forward.
I will
What?
say about Pokemon Home, they integrated all of these games in a very easy to understand way, thanks to adequate documentation, very easy to understand graphs that don't leave too much room for ambiguity, if any at all. Just if there's any detail missing, that's just if there's any information missing, it's just what happens if this and that and yada yada yada. I
Yeah.
will say about Pokemon Home, big picture over time. I don't play Pokemon anymore. Haven't played really actively in a couple of years. Um, but my only gripe about anything with Pokemon Home is just the time to deploy new features. I feel like the Pokemon company does a disservice by making their clientele wait all these extra months between feature and feature and feature. One could argue, well, it gives them something to look forward to. It's you could also say maybe the Pokemon company's not blowing their load too quick, you know. So there might be different philosophies to look at this. You might have to edit that out, but who cares? But you get what I'm trying to say. There's probably different reasons on why the Pokemon company chooses to stagger just features like this. Like when did Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl come out? Rusty?
This last holiday season,
So about half a year.
November, I think. So yeah, probably about half a year.
Half a year of a mainline Pokemon game being out, but no integration with Pokemon Home during that 6 month time.
Yeah, you're right. They do take quite a while, and as a somebody who actively plays these games, I mean, my 3D, I have my Switch, like literally the OG Switch. See, here you go. You got the OG blue and the blue and red. Uh, yeah, so it was frustrating, yeah, because you couldn't do anything on the network really as far as uh, what's it called, Wondershare, nothing like that. That's my favorite part about these. The new part of Pokemon that was my favorite part was the ability to do the random trade deal. Because I would go spend like 3 hours catching bunk ass Pokemon to throw up on there. I was throwing, like Zigzagoons out the ass out there. I would catch 30 level 3 Zigzagoons and go and just throw them into the market and get back level 50 this or level 80 this, and you're getting the legendary this or some crazy Japanese shiny and stuff like that. So when they took that away from me in Brilliant Diamond and they didn't have any of the features like you're talking about, yeah, it was definitely frustrating. I was like, man, come on, this is like this is one of my favorite parts. Like for in game, once you beat the game, did the Elite Four, and you're looking for shit to do afterwards, that's one of the things I like to do. I like to just go and see what kind of wacky Pokemon teams I can create from doing the random Wonder Share or whatever it's called.
Let me tell you, for Pokemon Home, I wish this was something that would exist whenever we're in our retirement beds, nursing homes, whatever you want to call it, whatever state that we're in at our elderly age, where we have just all day and all night to complete the Pokédex, not just by
Let's
number,
do it.
but by species, by get all the forms, the languages.
Oh, that'd be
I
great.
want to
Can't wait.
like if I had it my way, if I ever have kids one day, I want to go on my Pokemon Home and read bedtime stories of each Pokédex entry in every language and try to
There
pronounce
you
it
go.
as best as possible.
There
My
you
kid will
go.
be a Pokemon master by the time they
The
turn
Pokemon
9.
Master.
Just saying.
There you go. All right, so we're eating up a lot of time. I didn't realize we're already at our 40-minute
I
mark
told you.
here.
I was
So
bullshitting.
I'm gonna touch briefly on it. Everybody's pissed off about Xbox delays. I just want to let everybody know, if you're pissed off about a video game delay, you are not living in 2022. You are living in 1985, because there are so many other things you could go do while you're waiting for the game that you want. There's so many games you could play. There's so many indie developers that are developing amazing, fantastic, like AAA games for cheap. You've got so many subscription services you can subscribe to. Just stay away from PlayStations because it's weak sauce, wasted money, in my opinion. If you're gonna get a pass right now, I'm not sponsored by them, but I will go ahead and applaud the Xbox Game Pass as an atmosphere. What they have created is amazing. Can't wait to see it on streaming services like TVs and stuff like that, Roku TVs. Can't wait for the streaming stick to come out for it. That's going to be dope, I think. But while you're waiting for Starfall, while you're waiting for, is it called Starfall? It's not Starfall. Damn, Starfield, sorry, and Redfall. While you're waiting for Starfield and Redfall, there's just go outside, touch some grass. You could do that too. I mean, like, start a garden, ride a bike. If you've got kids, go outside and play with your kids. If you don't have kids, just go touch grass. It's okay. Like, game delays can't always be a bad thing. They can be a good thing. In some aspects, where you wait 12 years for a game like Cyberpunk and they shit all over you, or for instance, what's the other game that was kind of shitty when it was released with a bunch of hype? No Man's Sky. Sometimes you gotta wait. If you go play No Man's Sky now, compared to when it first released, it's a whole different game. It's a brand new, like, beautiful, great game that doesn't get a lot of attention because of the fact of how all of you act when games aren't released when you want them to. Just remember, it's not always a bad thing. So that's all I have to say about that. A delay is not bad. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. If it is bad in your eyes, touch grass, start a
Look
garden,
at
ride a bike.
Zelda Breath of the Wild. Wasn't that game delayed for a hot minute or two?
It was delayed a little bit. They had some delays on it, yeah.
And every time a mainline Zelda game comes out, at least in recent years, maybe except for one or two, they're almost always a masterpiece. You might get close to a masterpiece by
Yeah, absolutely.
having your patience rewarded with a masterpiece.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I was going to talk about inclusivity in Barbie dolls, and then how Texas removed filters from social media. So I'll talk about that super fast. I applaud Mattel for finally doing something where you're not got the standard white Barbie and the standard black white Ken, and they're doing more inclusivity outside of color. They added different variations of Barbie skin tone and Ken skin tone and stuff like that for inclusivity, and that's wonderful and great. But there's other people that feel excluded by this toy brand, so they have added a vitiligo kin, which vitiligo is a skin condition that causes lack of pigmentation. And then you have the hearing aid Barbie. So it's a Barbie with a cochlear implant, which is great. I'm really glad to see some of these companies that have been around. Their inception was in a time that wasn't so inclusive, and they're now reinventing themselves and realizing that if they want to continue to sell products and they want to continue to be successful, that they're going to have to include everybody and be more inclusive. So I applaud their efforts for that. And Texas is nuts. We'll leave it at that for the Texas removing filters from social media. They're tired of catfish. I'm from Texas, so catfish to me is, a fish that likes to hang out at the bottom of the water at the river and likes mud. That's what catfish is to me. The catfish I imagine they're talking about is where you have all these filters on and you pull up to the date and she's not what she appeared to be or he appeared to be behind a filter. And I feel like anybody that if you're talking to somebody or you're getting ready to go on a date with somebody and you've got to the point to where you are willing to go and meet them in person, that the filters and all that shit, that should not, at that point, if you're that shallow of a human being where you sit with them and all the enjoyment you've had in talking to them leading up to meeting them, and then you're disappointed when you get there because of how they look, you're probably a piece of shit anyway. So I have no sympathy for you in that, but whatever, that's between you and whoever you decide to get catfished by with filters.
Keep it 100.
Keep it 100. Either way, keep it 100, ladies and gentlemen. And if they're not keeping it 100 and you're not keeping it 100, don't be so shallow to think that your filter is exceptional outside of personality. Your personality's got to do a lot of the walking for you, I feel like. So the big one here. All right, man, this is going to be the last topic I had before we just kind of have a general discussion about our video game history. So crypto bros, all you crypto bros out there, I know right now you guys are hurting. I know y'all are hodling, HODLing all the way to the moon. But the moon, man, moon's a little ways out there for you guys. It's like y'all are like little moles right now, burrowed down into the Earth's crust. You're you're at the bottom layer of the inner crust, man. You're feeling all the molten heat off the inner core. Like y'all are down there right now. So I'm not super hugely knowledgeable about the market outside of what I do in the market. I don't really pay attention to every coin that's out there. There's so many. I'm only pay attention to the ones that I personally put money on, and so I don't really have a lot of working knowledge of it. But I know that right now, as far as the market goes, market's down bad. Market's real down bad. Inflation's bad. Housing market's bad. Great time to sell a car. I mean, there's a lot of things that are good, a lot of things that are bad. What is your take, Cliff, right now on what I'll dub as the crypto's down bad segment here?
Look, I'm going to keep this simple. I'm not a financial professional, but I will say this. When it comes to buying low and selling high, do you look at this, and I'm talking about you, the viewer, you, the listener of this podcast, are you going to look at this downtrend as a disaster or an opportunity? And I'll leave it at that.
Which it could go either way. You like any kind of investing. Like I'm obviously not an investment pro or nothing. I don't claim to be a financial professor or nothing either. But when the market's down, that's what a lot of people do. A lot of buying. A lot of these people that got a lot of money to buy right now, they'll do a lot of buying on the dip. Remember, you buy on the dip, you sell on the high. So this might be your chance to get in on the dip while you still can. I'm holding all Dogecoin all the way to the end. If it never amounts to anything other than the few dollars I spent on it, then it never amounts to nothing. But it is what it is when you're gambling. Remember, It is gambling. Investing is gambling. It's just a fancy way to say, "Oh, I'm remember, investing is gambling. Anything that you do that is not a guarantee on your return is a gamble." So, remember, guys, that this is just keep that in mind. All those brokers, all those guys, there's an element of luck in everything that has to do with that. There's an element of luck. There is a skill base. There is a skill set. You have to be able to interpret data. You have to be able to analyze that data. You got to be able to input that data. You got to be able to take that data and know what that data means and be able to do with it, to make the right decisions. But at the end of the day, there is an element of luck in all of investing in cryptocurrency, especially NFTs, especially. And I just want to leave y'all with this before we switch into me and him discussing some of our video game history. I want to leave you with this. At one point in history, in Holland, they traded tulips. And I don't mean your tulips, I mean the flower. They traded tulips as a form of currency. And when the market crashed, everybody was holding a bunch of flowers and leaves and stems and seeds for tulips. So just keep that in mind. Value is only what we place on it. Otherwise, it's worth nothing. So,
Nothing to add on to that.
all right. Well, we'll segue into the next part then. So, early video game history. So, Cliff, I started out in 1993 with Sega Master System. My dad was 33 at the time, which is not much older than what I am now. Only a year or two older. And I remember, the Square controller. The Sega Master System was a pretty big video game system too at the time, as far as consoles went. It was a really long system, you know what I mean? And Sonic the Hedgehog. That's where all of my video game life starts, man. Sitting on the chair with my dad, or sitting on my dad's lap, or even just sitting there holding the controller at the start screen, watching the start screen go through the first level, and it go through the first level of the next act, and then it go through the, you know what I mean, and I would just sit there and watch that or play it or whatever. So it's a long history now. I'm coming up on my 30th year of playing video games next year. And man, it's been a ride, dude. I feel like our generation of video gamers, we grew up in what I consider a golden era for a few things. Golden era for animated TV, golden era for video games. We're coming into a new era right now of video games with virtual reality and things like that. But we were on the forefront of the explosion of video games, because before Nintendo and Sega's, and Atari too, before all of those home systems, they were a novelty. They were, the fancy kid down the street whose parents had a lot of money might have had one, where they weren't as, universal, the universality. And that's what comes to the title, video games are for losers. All of you people who played Atari in the 70s, all of you ColecoVision guys, all of you Commodore 64 guys, you've all been called fucking losers way more than I ever was called a loser for playing video games. And I know it. I know without a doubt that's what happened. And so we were lucky in the sense that video games were coming to a point of affordability and universality, as we grew up in a world that was hesitant for video games, but 15 years later, it's like the big burly jocks, professional sports athletes. There was an article that I can't remember the name of the basketball player, but he said, "I cannot live without video games." He said, "I cannot live with. I have to have my Xbox. Wherever I go, my Xbox. He's at a hotel. Where's the HDMI cord? No HDMI cord. Boom. I'm going down to Walmart and buying a TV. I got the money. Who cares? The guy has to have video games." And I kind of feel the same way. 30 years of playing video games, it's such a part of not just my daily life, but it's like it's almost a part of like my personal identity at this point. Like who I am as I'm a guy who likes to play video games. You know,
DeAndre Ayton, I believe
DeAndre Ayton.
yes, he's a center for the Phoenix Suns. I'm
Yeah,
somewhat familiar with him, but yes, he said that, and I could say I could see that honestly because me as a youngin, I would probably say the same thing because I don't know what else I'd be doing. My brain would be a little bit too hyperactive trying to use my imagination to act like them playing a game at home, trying to jump over imaginary tunnels, trying to avoid piranha plants and Goombas. And speaking of piranha plants and Goombas, I was a Nintendo guy growing up, roughly 93, maybe 94, who knows. NES is where it all started for me on Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3. And let me tell you, the first time I ever played an NES, I played with the controller upside down. My friends, I don't
yeah.
know how I did it. I could not play it downside down, upside up. I was beating Super Mario Bros. 1, all 16 worlds with the controller upside down, and other people were baffled at me just as much as I was baffled at them playing the controller with the wire facing the TV.
I got a
Now,
challenge for you. I got a challenge for you, and we might do this live or however you want to do it. But I want to challenge you to beating at least maybe how many is there? 16 worlds on Super Mario One.
yeah.
Maybe the first two worlds or something. Let's see if you could still flip the controller and go back and see how well. Even if you don't do good, I would like to see how far you can actually get before you get frustrated enough to set the controller down. I would love to see you replicate that. That would be cool.
You know what? That's an idea. For those of you watching this video, if you think we should do that, be sure to like this video, comment below, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And
Absolutely appreciate
comment
that.
below and tell me what you look forward to on this event of playing SMB1 with the upside down controller. But let
I
me
think that would
continue
be
on with the
cool.
story. My dad, he had some other consoles from the 80s. I'm pretty sure the Master System was in there, some Atari console. I don't remember. There was a box of just unattractive looking boxes I didn't care about. I was all about the NES and Mario at the time. Although I was a gamer, even I hated blocky graphics back in the day. NES was like, even when I was young, I said, this looks like crap. But Super Nintendo was when it started to get like, okay, this is looking really good. So fast forward to 96, after playing through games like Bomberman, Mega Man 3 captivated me because that's the kind of side scroller action I wanted. I wanted to be able to shoot a buster, slide, get all these different weapons, and destroy enemies in my own creative way. But after playing a variety of those games on the NES, moved on to the SNES in '96. Started with Super Mario World. Also added Donkey Kong Country 2. This one game called Bob, some little golden-looking alien on some that travels between planets. I don't know if you recall that
Yeah.
game. The name
Nah,
was
don't.
Bob. That game was like a $5 or $10 game from the video store, and I said, I can't believe I'm playing this game. This game is hard as hell, but I'm spending hours on end playing it because Mama don't want to take me to the video game store to rent the game I really wanted to rent, which was freaking Earthbound because it had the player's guide. And let me tell you something, out there in little old Mahia, Texas, I wanted a video game just once per weekend. It can be two on a good weekend, but I had to tell Mama
Two on a good weekend.
two on a good
Yeah.
weekend,
Mama TK.
and that's back when it was only 3 days, three
Yeah.
days on the rental. But when of course moving on to Waco and Blockbuster was 5, but still, what I'm trying to say is, had a humble beginnings with video games. Only owned maybe 1 to 4 games at a time, and the rental stores were they were a haven for me because I got exposed to um, worlds outside of what I known. Looking at cover art of video games in which I don't have access to the internet at this time in the 90s. Who
Yeah.
does? And I just had
Nobody did.
textbooks to look at. Just looking at the cover image of a PlayStation game like Final Fantasy VII makes me wonder what kind of world lies beyond here. And like I said, I was a Nintendo guy growing up, not a Sega guy, not a PlayStation guy. So I thought, my goodness, I've barely scratched the surface of what this world has to offer. And video
Barely.
games allowed me to peek, and of course, television until what lies out there in the world. My curiosity just peaked on the endless possibilities out there. And I wasn't a big avid reader as a kid. I actually did not enjoy it very much. And look where I'm at in life today. I mean, there's not that many things I'm interested in reading. I'm not really big on fiction, but if it's gonna be fiction, I need to have a visual aspect to it. That's just me. I know there's some people out there that are that
No,
don't
I
mind
mean,
reading. That's
well,
just works for me.
that's the thing with a lot of people is it's all about how your brain processes information. Some people have a hard time processing books. Some people they struggle with comprehension for the actual reading aspect of it, and I kind of like having a technical job like I used to have inside of a factory. I ran into that a lot where you would have somebody who's worked at the factory for 25 years can barely read. Not barely read, they could read, but technical language was difficult for them to read. So when you would have all of these new systems that were being implemented as far as like uh, just stuff as far as like waste management and stuff like that, managing like candy waste and keeping everything in a fiscally responsible way, uh, they would have struggle understanding some of the terminology, and they're like, I could fix all this stuff blindfolded backwards and never even look at a manual once to fix complex $1 million worth of equipment. But when it came down to putting it into a book or a technical manual and reading it and understanding it, they struggle with it. And if you put them in front of a video, it clicked. It would click so much better than the actual text. So yeah, so for me, I was an avid reader, but video games was different than books to me, because books to me were like watching a movie. I got to make I got to visualize who the character of the movie was. I was the director, I was the actors, I was the producer. So whenever I'm reading a book, it's like a whole movie is playing in my head. That's how books have always been to me. That's why I liked books as a kid so much, is because my mind processed it and gave me a visual element as I was reading it. Well, with video games, it was a world that's not of my own creation that I got to explore. And I was always big on, open world games. Like, I guess the very first open world game that I ever played would have been Mario 64. I believe that was my first like open world ish, because it's not like, I mean, you run from one area to go to the next stage, run one area to go to the next stage, but even inside of those stages, it wasn't it was linear in a sense that you had to go this way to this way to this way to get this, but it was like there's 5 or 10 different stars that you can go get on this one map. So you could do this and boom, you get the star, then you get to go back and you get to try a different route, and then boom, you get to go. So you had way more things that you could like explore and go check out. And then Zelda too, Zelda being open world like it was, boom, that was just huge for me. Like, I didn't own a 64 and I wasn't a Nintendo kid. The only Nintendos that we played were the handheld. I never had a Nintendo console until the GameCube. But leading up to the GameCube, I had experienced the 64 at other people's houses and stuff like that. And I was just like, man, I was just enraptured by open world. So along comes the PS1. I played through all the PS1 stuff, have a great time with the PlayStation 1. We go from Sega to PS1. That was our jump. We went from Sega Genesis. When we moved here from England, our parents bought me and my little brother a Sega Genesis. So we played that. We evolved from Sega Genesis, and at this time I'm going to other people's houses and I'm playing the Super Nintendo. I'm playing Duck Hunt, getting a little light gun action going on. I'm experiencing everything, but not in house. So we have the Sega. At the time, my one of my childhood friends, I'm not gonna say he was spoiled because he didn't get the attention from his parents that I got from mine, but he got everything thrown at him, all the video games you could think of. So he had the Sega Game Gear, he had the 64, he had every iteration of the PS1, from the big gray one to the little white one, and from the fat PS2 to the skinny PS2. Like, he had every iteration all the way up until we're at the point where we were teenagers and the very first Xbox came out, and I lived vicariously through that. But then we get the PlayStation 1 and then the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 with Grand Theft Auto 3 was really like a click in my head. And I was like, man, I'm going to be doing this forever. Like, that game for me was huge. I don't know why. Uh, It had nothing to do with being able to kill or pick up a prostitute or sell drugs or anything like that. Like a lot of people go that route and they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's the first time I ever got to pick up a prostitute in a video game or beat somebody up in a video game. But for me, it was like a badass, like Godfather like movie that I got to be a part of. It was like, man, I get to create this movie. I get to direct how this goes. Like, you either kill this guy or you let him live, kind of thing. Like, it gave you an option to do something. It's like, well, a video game giving me an option to go a different route. Like, generally it's kill the guy, kill the guy, kill the guy, kill the guy. But they were like, well, you could show him mercy if you want, and then the story still continues. So that was what I like appreciated about a lot of the story development and stuff for that. And I guess the biggest video game for me in the entirety of video games would be Morrowind Elder of Scrolls. I'd have to say that was the biggest game for me. And I don't know why it had to be that one and not some other open world RPG, but I just feel like at that time frame where I was at mentally as a 15, 16-year-old kid, I remember everybody had left the house that summer. It was still dial-up DSL days. I think we still might have had dial-up. I don't even think we had upgraded DSL yet. I think we had just gotten a DSL. It was like 2005, maybe. We just gotten DSL, and so I had set a TV up right next to the computer, and I used to have to compete for the internet with my brother or my little sister. They were gone, so I just kicked back. I threw my feet up on the computer desk. I had my Xbox controller with Morrowind on the TV. I had the internet right in front of me. I had music in headphones. I mean, it's peak '05. You got MySpace up on the computer. You got AIM over here dinging its ass off. You got Yahoo Pool over here. You're getting a game or two in.
Yahoo
it was
Pool,
just
what's
like, it was just like peak '05 for like a 15-year-old teenager in 2005. It was just like peak. TV, video games, you had your internet, you had your homeboy on AIM talking about he's fighting his dad in the front yard in his underwear. Like, I mean, it was just popping. It was just iconic for that generation. So I guess that's why that game was just real big for me. It was just that one summer where everybody fucked off for half the summer and I was just me by myself at the house, and I was like, I don't have to compete for the Xbox. I don't have to compete for the internet. So I'm just going to click away. So that's my origin story.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's video games in a nutshell for me, man. So we're reaching the hour mark. You got anything you want to discuss or add here at the end, or anything you want to say? Or
I don't really have too much to add on right now, but I will say games that I'm really playing these days, laying off of Fortnite. More than Call of Duty again. Oh my goodness! It's just a simple social
he's
experience.
back on
When
Call
I
of
play
Duty.
video games, I'm not really a hyper competitive gamer, but I did drop a 22 kill streak yesterday on Black Ops Cold War, and my previous high was 14 prior to that. So I said,
Hey, that's
my
good.
goodness.
I did really good on. I'm kind of the opposite of you. I've segued away from Call of Duty, and as soon as they introduced, okay, so for Fortnite, my history with Fortnite starts with a beta code. Before the fame, before Fortnite was huge, I got a beta code from one of the Ludwig brothers. Matter of fact, Calvin, I got a beta code from him, and he was like, "Hey, play this with me." He always gave me beta codes because I mean, he was. I don't know if he knows somebody who's a developer or not, but the dude had beta codes for days for everything. So anytime something new was coming out, he'd slide me a beta code. So I played it and I was like, hey, this is fun. This is fun. You know, building, save the world was the only option that you had. So we're like building, shooting, aliens or whatever. And then they released the Battle Royale, which at that time, that was like beginning of Battle Royales. And I was like, man, this is fun. This is fun. About a month in, the meta starts for the building shit. It took a while for that to like kind of catch on. But about a month or two into Battle Royale, you got cranking 90s. You got dudes just cranking. You're trying to shoot, and you're like, "Bro, are we Minecrafting right now? Are we looking for diamonds? Or are we fucking trying to shoot each other? Like, is this a first-person shooter or a first-person builder? Like, what are we doing?" So or a third-person shooter. But as soon as they took away the no build here recently. Man, I've been on it like crazy.
Let me tell you something. Fortnite is that one game. It's just a perfect storm of a game. It's a
But I
game.
have yeah. Perfect storm of a game. Go ahead, my bad. I didn't mean to interrupt
eh,
you.
It's a game that just constantly evolves, whether it is the different game modes, you got the creative aspect, and you've also got the IPs of all the different media entities that really hit home for Fortnite. You got
Yeah.
Halo Master Chief in there one day. You got Marvel character. You got The Rock as the foundation. You got all these popular figures in the world in the game. They get released into the game over time. I'm curious when WWE is going to get like John Cena up in there, like when they get the actual WWE characters like The Rocker, John Cena, like sales would explode on there.
Oh, they would.
Fortnite
Well, the
and
sales exploded when they added Marvel characters. They just did this around May the 4th. They had another Star Wars deal where you could grab blasters and they just released like a musket. That's the thing I will give to Epic Games is you never have to worry about content. You never have to
they,
worry about
they
something new or like an evolve. As far as games evolve, they have done the best. PUBG
yes,
might have did it first, but Fortnite did it the best. Battle Royale game. All the weapons are appropriately balanced. There's no like
they really
straight
are.
up overpowered, one shot from this rifle and game over. Everything is evenly balanced. The vehicles are all evenly balanced. Uh, the fuel aspect of the vehicles have the damage bar. I mean, it's just overall atmospheric. Better for social too. I don't even have to be in your game, and I can chat with you while you're playing if we're in the same voice lobby kind of thing, and that's cool because if you were starting a Call of Duty game and you were like picking me up as a player, I would have to wait till the end of that game before I could see you playing. Whereas Fortnite, I could jump in, boom, I could go watch Cliff right now and talk to you while I'm waiting for the next game to start up, and which is cool socially for games because there's a lot of times where I go to play with people and it's like, hey, bro, I'm in the middle of a game. I'll pick you up next round. Well, by the time the next round starts, he's already started a round. So he's like, all right, bro, I'll jump in with y'all. Let me finish my round. And then it's just, by the time you're done, it's like, hey, bro, I've done played 4 matches. You've done played 4 matches. One of us is going to have to sit and do nothing for 20 minutes while the other person finishes a match so we can join up. That kind of thing, and Fortnite eliminates that. So I always appreciate that about Fortnite.
Yeah, it definitely does good in that aspect. The social aspect has been pretty extraordinary on the
Yeah.
on Fortnite. It's just like I go in and out of phases with Fortnite, but because the first game that I ever played that was like not that I've ever done crack cocaine, but it felt like a crack cocaine reaction going on. My brain was playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Once I started playing it, that was my first really true FPS I was played. I've played GoldenEye before, but in terms of like multiplayer playing with people across the world, it was Modern Warfare 2. And since I played that game, that's been my favorite genre over time. Really, that franchise because just that style of gameplay, the
Yeah.
constant chaos, and Rocket League as well. I'd have to toss Rocket League up there as well. But I've been playing Call of Duty more as of late. But Call of Duty just feels at home for me because I love the shit talking aspect. I like the um it just feels like a more mature game for me, if you will. At least I guess I wouldn't say I've grown out of Fortnite. Like I'm gonna go in and out of phases with Fortnite, I'm sure, but right now it's Call of Duty for me. I've been playing Fortnite pretty fairly consistently to semi consistently for the past year and a half since the start of last year. And it's been a fun experience. I really have enjoyed the game the time that I have played. So the big question is what will be the next major genre of game that will trump battle royale? Will it ever happen? Who
I don't
knows?
know.
Will the augmented reality and the virtual reality take over somehow? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. But yes, that's the first episode, man. How do you feel about that?
I feel like we wrapped it up so well that I think we can go ahead and ship this one off to the interwebs.
All right, guys. Well, you heard it right there from Cliff Goat. We're gonna ship this one out, signed, sealed, and delivered. I want to try to give it to you guys as raw as possible, like goat's milk. We're appreciative of anybody that watches this first episode. This is Video Games Are for Losers. It's just a retrospect, an introspect, and a look into the future of video games, technology. We don't want to, we had set out with the mindset that we were going to do some like a historical documentation of video games going forward, but we want to be able to have conversations outside of video games, but things that are video game affected. As far as the tech world, video games are so ingrained in technology and things like that. And the one rest in peace that we forgot, we're gonna go ahead and leave out on this, but rest in peace to the iPod. I personally never owned an iPod. I always owned a third party MP3 player. I had one of the Chinese little round, little oblong ones that were like this. I actually have it somewhere over here somewhere with the music still on it from 2005. But
Good
it's
lord.
it's just an oblong deal that used to it looked like a USB stick. It was kind of rounded with a really shitty LCD screen on it. And at one point the LCD screen broke in my pocket, and I remembered the pattern of buttons to be able to go
Oh
through
yeah.
the little menu on the screen, so I still could navigate it just from memory, so it was still usable. But rest in peace to the iPod. Yeah.
I only owned one iPod in my life. I think it was the first generation iPod Touch. Actually, I did own the iPod Shuffle, which that was awesome because I
Yeah,
like the
Shuffle was cool.
portability. Even though I hated anything having to interface with iTunes, just to interface with it. iPod Shuffle is my favorite MP3 player of all time because it just clips on and you play your
Yeah,
music. It's more portable than a smartphone and it just
way
clips
more
on.
portable. Yeah.
RIP iPod.
Yeah, rest in peace, iPod. It was it was a slow and eventual death. It was going to happen with telephones, but yeah, we appreciate your service. Salute to the iPod, iPod Touch, iPod Shuffle, iPod Nano, and any other variety of iPod that I forgot in that. And again, we want to thank everybody for listening or watching. Most of you are going to be watching it because there's probably not going to be a listen format for a while once I get everything squared away. I'm still creating everything and getting everything set up. But you will be able to find us on all social media at Video Games Are for Losers. The Instagram page is up now if y'all want to go follow that. I have no content on there yet, but I'll be working on that, getting some stuff going for it. This is going to be a slow build, and we hope that you guys enjoy the ride or don't enjoy the ride. And if you don't enjoy the ride, jump the fuck off. Uh, Anything to add, Cliff, before we sign off, bud?
That's all I've got to say for now. And hopefully you did enjoy this video. Even if you do dislike the video, that still helps us in the algorithm because likes or dislikes help when it comes to pushing the video in the searches. So if there's whatever you liked or didn't like about the video, be sure to comment below and let us know what we can do to improve or let us know what we're doing. That will keep you coming back for more. We look forward to seeing y'all in the next episode.
And don't forget to check out Cliff Goat at all social medias at Cliff Goat on Twitch, YouTube, everywhere else you consume media.
Or you can just type in cliffgoat.net on your web browser. You'll see all the links to the Cliffgoat Network
There you
right
go.
there.
A little link tree for you guys. Again, thanks y'all. This has been Video Games Are for Losers. I'm Rusty.
And this is Cliffgoat.
Appreciate you guys.